Hi everybody, this is Professor Jason Snart. I am the instructor for English2226 online here for the first 5-week session in summer, Masterpieces of World Literature. Pretty intimidating stuff. And I will be doing a number of these video announcements throughout, but I figured I'd start with a quick little greeting here, and probably the second of many, many professorial warnings that there is a lot of work to cover in 5 weeks for the masterpieces of everything that's ever been written. So it's a pretty heroic undertaking, which is fitting since we read lots about heroes from thousands of years ago to a few decades ago, spanning everything from the Orient to ancient Greece to modern America. So we're all over the map, all over the time scale, we're everywhere. But to get us started then, so I have our course here in front of me, and I'll click through a couple of the important links maybe to get people started. What you'll see on the left-hand side is first the announcements link, and that the announcements list will be the first thing that you see when you get into the course. So these video announcements will show up here. Sometimes if there's text announcements. In fact, this reminds me to remind you that it is worth checking into Blackboard on at least a daily basis. Even if you're not actually doing new work or looking for new work to do the next unit necessarily, it's always good to be sure you've seen the most recent announcement, which might have content or course related stuff, or just kind of general, due date reminders, whatever. So good habit for the next 5 weeks. You're on Blackboard pretty much every day. That includes weekends, folks. Sorry. Masterpieces of World Literature, 5 weeks. Come on. Okay, so the announcements page. You're seeing this right now. The next is a My Grades link. Obviously, you can check your grades as we work through the class to make sure you're getting full credit for assignments and that kind of thing. And then the place you really want to start is the syllabus link. So you'll see the actual syllabus itself, which includes our textbook information, course objectives, which are very simple here, but important since we'll be returning to those at the end of the course, so do take a look at those right up front. A little description of how the course works in terms of the sort of setup for the online course, or how the various units and assignments and the pieces all fit together. Hopefully that's fairly self-explanatory, but I know what's simple for one person is like completely impenetrable for somebody else. It just depends on what you're used to seeing or how you kind of expect things to work and that sort of thing. And then there's a little note on the various kinds of discussion board posts that we'll be doing throughout the class. There's 3 main kinds, and I'm basically just reading what's already here for you to read at your own pace here. There's discussion boards, so response essays, so sort of like a larger, more formal response to a prompt that will be given in each of the units. Think of this more like an essay versus the more informal, sort of traditional short paragraph discussion board kind of thing. So lots of support for your ideas with quotation from the texts that we're looking at. You're usually avoiding the I voice just because it tends to be very informal, although there are some cases where the assignment actually asks for your experience directly, so obviously where it makes sense to use the I voice. But normally we're looking for much more concision and precision in this kind of writing. And so what I suggest is that in these discussion board response essays, you're kind of imagining like a 2-page more formal essay, not really long obviously, but structured into paragraphs, introduction, body paragraphs, a conclusion of some kind, all those basic components. In fact, I suggest here that you might want to even type these in Word like you would a normal essay, and then just cut and paste into the discussion board when you're ready to as a post. This might be easier for editing revision purposes if you have the spell checker turned on, just basic stuff like that. So if you find that easier to do, by all means. Often through the course then you'll be asked to do just discussion board posts as opposed to response essays. these are more like the traditional kind of paragraph length, slightly less formal responses to much more focused kind of prompts that you'll find within each of the units. And then last but not least, the discussion board replies, again, probably familiar to most of you, especially if you've done an online class before. The much more informal, just replying to what somebody else has written. And we're always trying to keep these positive, you know. If someone suggests an idea you hadn't thought of, or a particular, you know, reading of a text, or maybe a similarity between two texts that you hadn't seen before, it's really nice as the author of that, you know, initial maybe essay, to have somebody comment positively on it by saying, oh, I hadn't thought of that before, or that's really interesting, and maybe even expanding on that idea. So you can read these basic types here: the discussion board response essay, the discussion board post, and then a reply. Hopefully, again, fairly self-explanatory, but if you have questions, you can be in touch with me.